Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always delighted to have this guest, Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals, is joining us really live right now, Tuesday night. This is July 15th, 16th today, 2024. Andy, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Good to be back, done again. It's too bad it's not live like it was last week, but good to be here.
Yeah, we're not together in the same room, but this is an opportunity for people to ask their questions. So, folks, if you are on YouTube and you're a subscriber, it's free to subscribe. Just click the subscribe button and you're in. Then you can participate in the live chat. When you ask questions in the live chat, then I'll get them in front of Andy. And we're going to try to keep this moving tonight because I got to end at the bottom of the hour. So we're gonna end at 9:30 Eastern here. So let's keep it moving. Andy, we wanted to start off tonight with recognition of the tragedy that just happened in our country. And I know you had texted me like immediately after it happened. And my son Elijah, who helps us with technical things, suggested that we, out of respect for the people affected by that and for our beloved country, spend a few minutes here talking about why it disturbs us so much, and what it indicates about perhaps a change in our country, that this sort of thing can happen. And anyway, so I wanted to give you a chance to weigh in on that. And one of the things that we'll talk about along the way there is how possible it even is anymore for us to trust what we're being told from mainstream sources about what we actually know about things or what the real cause really was, and that sort of thing. So that's one thing that I find especially disturbing about any major development these days is how can we trust the story that we're being told? But you texted me right away when there was a shooting at the Trump rally and when Trump got injured, and you had said to me, what kind of a country is this? And that's the subtitle of tonight's video is what has become of our country. So did you have any words to share about that?
Yeah, Vladimir Putin at his meeting, one of the BRICS meetings in St. Petersburg, recently said the Bretton Woods system is dead, and it's been replaced by a system that is really backed by nothing but the trust of the United States and, well, the full faith and credit, right? And we know about the credit part. We're broke. We're almost 125% debt to GDP. We're creating $100,000 in debt every second, or $1 trillion every 100 days. Took 200 years to do that. And when we talk about trust, look, I've been very vocal about how I feel about all of the things, the judicial system, the two-tiered status of it, the immigration system, the lawlessness, all of these things. When you think about how fragile the entire system is, done again, where 1/8 of an inch separates chaos from not, I look at what's happened. And again, just like we are supposed to believe that everyone from Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, down to the media who's been supposedly covering things for the past 4 years, believes that as of they just recognize that at the debate Biden is exhibiting mental deficiencies. Haven't noticed it at all over the last 4 years, but we're supposed to believe that they do now. We're supposed to believe that a shooter can get 120 yards away. That's a pitching wedge with the AR-15. Look, Dunnigan, I've had my concealed permit for 20 years. I've done a lot of shooting, and I've shot AR-15s with laser scopes. That's a slam dunk. 120 yards with a AR-15 with a red dot or a laser scope. You don't even have to be an expert marksman. It's pretty easy. How does someone get 120 yards away in direct line of sight of the president, the one elevated spot?
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposed to believe that the head of the Secret Service said, well, we didn't want to put a sharpshooter on a slanted roof. It was too dangerous. That's what she just said today. And we're all supposed to believe that. When you talk about trust, I don't think, people say, who will trust China? Who will trust Russia in this new BRICS endeavor? Who the hell trusts us anymore? I don't think the American people trust us anymore. Not us, but our leaders. And it's a sad state of affairs when, I mean, I was watching it live, and it's a sad state of affairs that this was allowed to happen. If you look at the overhead view, if your children were speaking on that podium and you were in charge of security under the same situation, do you think that you would leave that spot wide open, from 120 yards away, elevated position, direct line of sight? The whole thing just reeks. All of the things that are now coming out just reek. And it's a sad state of affairs. And it just goes to show, I've been saying on your show, if you think there'll be smooth sailing between now and the election, I got a bridge to sell you. Well, it's not, and there won't be. And they're pulling out all the stops. And it's horrible how they actually think we're so naive to believe that the Secret Service wouldn't put a sharpshooter on that roof because it was slanted. Look at the roof that the two sharpshooters were standing on. It was equally slanted. We're supposed to buy that. This is the American public. We are supposed to buy it. And when you think about how different the world could possibly look today if it was 1/8 of an inch to the left, it's frightening. What would Xi Jinping and Putin be thinking? Would they be strategizing? What would the world look like? And, then again, I think it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Is right up there with 9/11. This is a horrible day for our country, and God bless Trump for surviving. Maybe God really is watching over him. All the things they've thrown at him. All I can tell you is that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, this was as right in your face as it gets. And I think people should take a real hard look at what Putin was saying about a country that the entire foundation of this country is based upon trust. And are we trustful, or are we trustworthy anymore? Or have we really squandered that trust? And that I'll leave, open for everyone's thought. I don't know what you think, but it to me has really disturbed me a lot. Maybe more so than anything I've seen in a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, in addition to the loss of life and innocent life that happened there, and the risk to our former president, et cetera, there's that is an overarching feeling that I had as the story was breaking, was what chance do we even have of finding out what's really going on? We're being presented with what we want, what is wanted to show to us, what those who own the media want the people to believe in. Hopefully it'll elicit the response that they're hoping to elicit. It's like it's so distressing to think that our beloved country, our republic, our constitution, et cetera, has gone so far from where it should have been, and the role of the media, the duty of the journalism to report accurately and fully, and the servants of the people to when questioned, be forthright about where actually responsibility lies and what they're going to really do differently and that sort of thing. It all just puts us back to I guess what we had been told back in the Cold War about the Soviet Russia. I had one of my best friends through high school was an immigrant from Russia, and he talked to us about the Russian media. Well, their main newspaper was called Pravda. Pravda means truth, and he said the saying was "Pravda niet pravda," meaning Pravda is truth. The truth is not the truth, is what the people all said, and it's very fundamentally distressing to think that what the elected leader of your country is not really the one who's calling the shots, and that wherever we think we have direct influence as free people, we probably don't have the influence that we think we have. So that's, I think, one of the reasons that we founded this channel, and one of the reasons that we come together here is to share what we know to be true and what we suspect to be true, and try to share that information so that people can make reasonable decisions about what to do in their lives. And we try to support each other in that regards, knowing that we're being betrayed. And that's James Rawls from the survivalblog.com says we're living in the age of deception and betrayal. He says, plan accordingly, prepare accordingly, relocate accordingly, invest accordingly. So that's just distressing when it's in your face that we are living in the age of deception and betrayal. I think many people feel betrayed at this moment, And I'm grateful, very grateful that things didn't turn out worse. And but as we've said, and you have said on our channel, and others have said it, and we had just last week we had Dr. Edwin Vieira, constitutional attorney, on, and he's laid out about a dozen different scenarios from here through the election, and frankly, none of them turn out to be very rosy because of the likelihood of deep state interference with the whole process, no matter what the outcome of the election is, et cetera. So that's deeply distressing, and it just underscores, I think, that a lot of what we've covered on our channel is the people taking individual responsibility for their own household, their own community,
Yeah.
their own network of immediate people that they have immediate influence with, and making preparedness. Because if you wait, as Brad Harris from Full Spectrum Survival says, if you wait for the official warning will always come too late. So we're not going to wait for the official warning. We're going to follow our guts. We're going to support each other. We're going to communicate clearly and openly as much as possible, and hope and encourage each other to make prudent preparations for the good of ourselves, for the good of our children, our grandchildren, our families, our communities. And that's in some ways the best we can do, while striving to demand that our elected representatives and others uphold the Constitution and speak the truth to us or be held accountable to us. We've had both a sheriff's deputy on in the last 2 weeks, as well as a sheriff, who both spoke very openly and plainly about the role of the Constitution as primary in their duty to uphold law and order. So I think not all hope is lost, that there are still the majority of those in our country still love our country, love our Constitution, long for law and order and truth and justice. So I think that's what we need to cling to, and that we are all one people. We're all Americans. And but thank you for reaching out right away when this happened. And that did necessarily, I think, shape the beginning of our visit tonight. We have some there's a Denise says in the comments, we the people must come together and learn to trust ourselves and each other and elect the best. So that's thank you, Denise, for that. We had a question early on asking you, Andy, and what we learned at the Rule Conference that we attended all last week. Any key takeaways? That was Bucky Barnes, who says, "Did you come away with anything important from the Rick Rule event?"
You know, I had an interesting conversation with a fellow who I trust a lot, who, while there, we talked about, he wanted to talk to me about my idea, or how I've been talking about lately, that the markets are being challenged by the central banks to stand for delivery, and that this is the Achilles heel to the Western bullion banks. And he pointed me in the direction of a story about a group on the Shanghai Gold Exchange called Zhongkai Futures. I don't know if you're familiar with them. It's ZHONGCAI. It's a company, a futures company. And over the last month or so, we've been seeing large deliveries of gold out of New York that are going to China and related to the Shanghai premium. And there's been, once the metal gets sent over there, we've seen a very, very large drawdown in the numbers on Shanghai. In other words, someone's taking it off of the exchange. And what's interesting is, I have said for a while, and it was a long conversation I had with this gentleman, and I thank him for it, for pointing me in this direction, because it's very compelling as to what I was talking about. He was saying, look, this entity is for real, and they are standing up against JP Morgan. And I did some digging into it and found that as of last week, while we were at the show, Zhonghai Futures had over 31,000 long positions across all sorts of gold contracts, with a margin of 21 billion yuan, or 31 tons of gold. And they also have massively long positions in silver futures contracts. And they're standing for delivery. And the counterpart to all this, the short position, is JP Morgan. They're getting crushed. And so what happens normally is that the bullion banks will suck in the speculation. They'll absorb all the buying pressure from the hedge funds, the big funds, and they'll absorb all that pressure because they're borrowing money from the Fed at next to nothing, whereas the hedge funds are borrowing it at a much higher level. They have much more money, they get it at a much cheaper rate, and they know where the pain points are. So they suck in the speculation. Then they step on the position after they absorb all the selling or the buying. Then they step on the position and step on the position until the managed money capitulates. And it's a rinse, wash, and repeat thing that's been going on forever. I always wondered, why do they keep coming in and doing this? But what's interesting right now is that Shanghai Futures is standing for delivery. And I believe that this is a proxy for the PBOC. Who holds a margin account of 21 billion yuan or 31 tons of gold? And massive amounts in silver futures and standing for delivery. We keep seeing large amounts of gold leaving the COMEX and going to China through a contract that was developed in 2015 by the CME group that allows for delivery to Brinks, Hong Kong, which is a COMEX facility. It is then trucked to the Shanghai Exchange as all metal has to go through there, and it's disappearing off the exchange. Is it the PBOC doing it? Don't know. But what I am simply trying to say to you is that because gold is so important right now, and he opened my eyes to Shanghai Futures and saying this is the PBOC by proxy, and I believe it because I think it's become very evident where gold fits into the equation. And here again, with positive real return in the treasury market, a strong dollar, outflows out of the ETFs, and very weak demand here in the United States, well, logic would tell us, geez, the price of gold ought to be cratering. But here we are at all-time highs today. And if you look at how gold has performed in most of the currencies around the world, even including the Canadian dollar, I mean, in most currencies, it's pretty damn close to doubled or more over the last 2 years or 3 years. And so there is an amazing amount of demand for gold at a level above all of us. And that's what people need to understand. I've been trying to hammer home. Do not listen to the rhetoric. Do not look at the price. It is the ultimate tool of misdirection. When you see someone standing up against JP Morgan with a margin account that has control of 31 tons of gold, and they've been standing for delivery, what more do you need to know? When you see India buy 1.5 times the amount of gold they bought all of last year and bring it home, along with 100 metric tons that they've held since 1991 at the Bank of England, what the hell more do you need to know? The biggest money in the world is front running what is coming. And if you do some digging, and last week we talked about the unit and how all this will trade over Project Enbridge, you can see that we are moving to a system that will look at gold in a very, 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 very different way. And silver too. But yeah, I mean, what did I learn? I learned that there weren't a lot of people there. I learned that the investing public is asleep at the switch while the biggest money in the world, and no surprise to me, this is how it always goes. The biggest money in the world positions themselves while the rest of the people are fixated on the shiny objects called Nvidia, Bitcoin, and Apple. And yet gold keeps marching higher, outperforming everything, and without any fanfare. At a period of time where everything in this country, from positive real yield, strong dollar, and outflows out of the ETFs, and very tepid retail demand, would say it should be tanking. So, contrarian indicators abound all over, from the number of people at the show. It's a great show. It's the best one. But I'm so darn busy there, I never get a chance to listen to too many of the other speakers. But the conversation I had was as interesting as it gets. I had another conversation that I will talk with you offline about, that maybe next week we'll talk about. I've really wrestled with what I want to say, and I'm going to set I guess, a teaser, but I'll talk with you offline. It's really some, I don't even know how I'd classify the information, but it's something I really want to talk about. I've asked permission and was granted the permission. I still don't know that I want to talk about it. Maybe next week we will. You and I will talk offline. But yeah, to me, that was the most important thing that I took away from the show, was my eye-opening awakening to what's going on in the Shanghai futures market was Shanghai futures.
Yeah, I had not heard of that one myself, and it certainly has been, as you say, wash, rinse, repeat when we talk with GATA representatives like Bill Murphy, et cetera. And then also we talked with, Ted Butler year after year, and now Ed, his good friend, talking about that's been going on forever on the COMEX and the regulators, so-called regulators, turning a blind eye. So it's interesting now that this is happening on a different exchange, and it's
Well,
happening in a different way.
it is, and it goes along with what we see. Silver's being drained all over the place as well. On the first day of deliveries here for the July delivery, or the August delivery contract, almost 6 million ounces of silver were delivered to some company called PTG that no one knows who they are. And this goes along with the continued outflow out of COMEX, SLV, the ETFs, other ETFs, and Shanghai. The weekly report out of Shanghai Gold was released the other day and showed 215,355 kilograms of silver leaving the Shanghai Metal Exchange. That's 7.6 million ounces, or the weight of 60 adult African elephants. So when you see gold and silver being accumulated and then taken off the exchanges, that means delivered somewhere. It ain't coming back the way that it is. What more do people need to know? And I can keep saying all of this stuff, but some people get it. Some people are waiting for something. I'm not quite sure what, to understand that when this changes, it'll be a violent change. It starts out the little by little by little, because that allows, these people, these countries, these banks, these sovereign wealth funds to reposition slowly without raising too much in the way of an alarm. As you can see, gold at all-time highs, and virtually no one is talking about it. But when it switches, when there's no bid to be found on the Western exchanges, bang. We saw that Adam Glapinski, who is one of the guys at the Bank of Poland, who's said some very interesting things over the years about what gold represents, said that he's the central bank of Poland, and they've ranked second globally for all purchases last year. He said purchases will continue significantly, and we've seen Turkey buy 6 tons in May, India buy 4 tons, the Czech Republic 3 tons. Every one of them brought it home. And now you have we talk about the reclassification of gold from its current status as tier 1, and now there's a lot of talk about groups trying to even petition it to be a HQLA, or a high quality liquid asset, which would be just above the tier 1 status. It is exactly the same thing as cash. And they are petitioning right now I guess it would be the BIS or the London Metals Exchange. But all I know is that there are articles floating around that gold is being elevated to the highest level and accumulated and repatriated. And that's what I talked about at the show. That's, I think, the most important clue as to where things are going right now.
Yeah, it's certainly a good rule to follow what they're doing rather than what they're saying or what they're not saying. Sometimes what they're not saying speaks louder than that, but always watch the actions, and what you're saying is you're seeing the physical moving in places that hasn't moved for a very, very long time, while it's not being talked, conspicuously not being talked about on the news. And I think tying back to our initial discussion about the coverage of the Trump event, I think reminds us all that we should be especially vigilant and especially wary when things are not being talked about that are extremely important to our futures. I wanted to give you a chance just for a minute here to run through the specials that are available. I'm going to bring those up here. Hold on one moment. And where are they?
Yeah, looks like we got
hold on.
4 specials. We still got the 10th-ounce Eagle, it looks like, at 39 over melt.
Yeah, I want to bring these up. Hold on. Yep.
Junk silver $0.50 at 250 over spot. The 2024 silver Britannia is at 329 over spot. Yeah, there you go. And then the 1 ounce Canadian gold maple leafs at 65 over spot. I mean, prices are ridiculously low. And
Yeah,
that's part
that's
of the contrarian indicator to all
yep.
of
That's one of the distressing things for me right now is when I have clients I've worked with for years who are now in a real financial pinch for because of taxes or whatever, and they're having to liquidate some of their metals, and that they go, wait, I paid how much over spot for premium, and now I'm only getting this much back over spot because the premiums are lower than they've been in 3 or 4 years. It's really counterintuitive, as you say, that at a time when there's this much uncertainty and there's this much evidence of what the largest players in the world are doing, that we're not seeing it yet at the retail level. So it's a rare
No,
opportunity.
not it just baffles. I mean, look, gold is expensive. I get it, but the silver's not. And at least from a standpoint of the value you're finding in it, and you're seeing so much silver being drained. And part of the presentation I gave shows I used that chart that Ed Steer showed on your show, where eight
Yeah.
banks hold the largest short position, concentrated short position in any commodity ever traded on COMEX. I mean, what more do you need to know? They're stepping on it for a reason. And, I also then talked about what's going on with the military industrial complex and how silver is not listed in the supply demand fundamentals. And with the amount of warfare going on, this is why they're stepping on it. They need it for military applications. I talk about John Little from the Pickaxe, his article, where in the subcommittee, the subcommittee banking and currency hearing in October of 1942, S.2768, where they say the present consumption of silver for war purposes is at the rate of about 100 million ounces a year and is growing rapidly. According to the War Production Board, it's only a matter of months before war demands will have increased sufficiently to require at least 200 million ounces of silver per year. That's October 1942. I mean, come on, man. Like, we're not using it right now for these super high-tech weapons. Well, geez, do you think there's any correlation why it's not listed in the supply-demand fundamentals or the supply-demand numbers, rather, from the Silver Institute? Even with their 250 million ounce shortfall, we're supposed to believe that photovoltaics is the largest demand for silver. The military has nothing to do with it. And it's just dumb. All of these things that they just think we're all so stupid. Why would 8 banks be holding the largest concentrated short position in any commodity ever traded in a tiny little market called silver at a period of time when sovereign nations are accumulating the crap out of it? It's as dumb as a mud wall. And they're doing it because they need it to build weapons. And that's what this all boils down to. The military industrial complex. They're a step or two ahead of our president in terms of who's making the decisions. And I don't know. I find it's just the whole thing starts to get aggravating because it's so clear to me. I wish I could convince more people of what silver really truly is. It's so clear to me, but yet price is everything. And that's all people care about. It's just price is everything. Look at the supply demand numbers from the Silver Institute. You see nary a word about military. Yet in 1942, we were on our way to 200 million ounces a year, and everything is a whole hell of a lot more high tech than it was back then. So, and then you look at the silver disappearing out of the Western vaults and all of these things coming together. You look at all the things that we've talked about with gold, how important it is to understand that the Project Enbridge, which Saudi Arabia just became a full participant on, how dollars are not compatible, U.S. currency is not compatible on Enbridge. Enbridge will trade the unit currency, which will be 40% gold. I did an interview today with Vince Lancy, and he was saying the 60% currency portion of it, those countries have every reason in the world to back their currency by gold so that it comprises the majority of the currency units within the unit system. And remember, the white paper on the unit says the gold is held within the borders of the country that possess it. They don't have to send it to Beijing or Moscow. They hold their own gold. They have it independently audited. They create a unit token, which will be 40% gold, 60% BRICS currencies. And he thinks those India and China and Russia will do all that they can to back their currencies with gold. And why do you think China's not telling us how much gold that they buy? Do you really think they've stopped buying? No, they haven't. There's massive deliveries happening right now off of COMEX. They're just not reporting it to the IMF. So all of the gold they produce, the 400 or 500 metric tons a year, all of the gold that they accumulate that's not 995 pure, all of the gold that their proxy banks on behalf of the PBOC deal with the refineries in South Africa and in Switzerland, all of the deals coming off of COMEX, none of that's reported. Why would they want to tell us? Why haven't we told, let the gold at Fort Knox be audited? And they will. You will see gold. We will wake up and we will see gold at levels the world cannot believe, just like the head of the central bank, Dutch central bank, said, talks about the gold revaluation account. And you can't make it up. Everyone in all central bank gold is held in an account called gold revaluation account. And all they got to do is make gold 10 grand, bang. They're horrible balance sheets because along with accumulating gold, they've all been accumulating debt. And one last thing I want to say, and I know you got to go, and I'm just ranting, and sorry for anyone who asked questions. You know, the more I think about it, think of what we're doing. As China and Japan are selling bonds, and Russia and Saudi, the UK is buying our bonds, right? The UK, the freaking UK, who's broke. So the broke country is buying the debt of an even more broke country so that we have enough money just to pay the interest on the debt we already created and to buy commodities, right? Commodities from who? Because we have virtually nothing in the way of commodities or the ability, the warehousing or the production capacity. So just like 90% of all the rare earths were mined in the Eurasian continent in China, 100% were refined in China. So we sell our debt to another broke Western country to help support the system so we can pay interest and buy commodities from the BRICS countries who, instead of buying our debt like they always did, they're selling it and buying gold. And so gold is going higher. The debt is getting lower and lower and lower. Rates are going higher. The whole system, the West, is just going down this dollar doom loop by what they're doing. And gold will have a new seat at the table before this is all said and done. I hope people understand that. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see the crumbs they're leaving at our feet. All right, I'll stop ranting. But you know what, man? It's happening really fast. And I guess I'm not done ranting yet because, look, you know, it's happening fast. And what's been really slow, and I've always joked about how it's getting faster and faster than toilet paper roll, but it is. And it's really getting faster now. And I hope people understand this new unit currency is the biggest game changer for gold and the dollar and the bond market in ever. And Saudi Arabia being a full participant in Enbridge, for which the unit will trade over, which is not compatible with the dollar. Well, that's pretty damn big too. So get your house in order, you guys, please. It's getting late in the day, and you can see 1/8 of an inch separates chaos. One other thing I'd like to say, just on a completely separate matter, I left Minnesota because the radical left more or less freaked me out so much I couldn't stand it there anymore. And where are all the riots and the burning down the cities and the looting by the radical right after what just happened on Saturday? I think the whole thing just stinks and sucks. And you know, the people on the right these days are more hardworking, blue-collar Americans than the elite that they were painted out to be. And I just think it's more frightening that the narrative we're being told by the left media and supposed to believe all this garbage, that they just realized that he's mentally compromised, that the Secret Service didn't want to put him on a slanted roof, so we left it wide open and they put him inside the building instead. All of this crap, it's getting worse and worse and worse, and it goes to show you we're getting closer to some form of a conclusion to all of this. So let's just all pray for the safety of former President Trump. No matter what you think about him, he was a former president of the United States, and it is a sad day for the United States to think this is what it's come down to.
And let's pray.
I feel better now, by the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy, and we pray for our country and for every one of our families, all who are looking here together, sharing this time together. Please share this video with those that you think might be able to benefit from it, and always We want to be prepared. Remember the old saying, I'd rather be 7 years older than one day late. It looks like we don't have 7 years left. We may not even have 7 months. So got to
No,
make sure that we're making our preparatory steps. Andy, thanks for joining us for this
Donegan,
this
it's always
update.
a pleasure. And I'm going to be starting my own, rekindling our old YouTube channel in the very near future, within the next week or so. And guess who I'm inviting on my show and I get to interview? That would be you. So, and then when you want to bow out, I'll stay and talk all night and maybe even pour myself a cocktail and talk with everyone here because it's getting to that time where we gotta communicate. So I love you. Thank you. I hope everyone out there stays well. And as the Chinese curse says, may we live in interesting times. You ain't seen nothing yet, you guys. I think it only gets crazier. So stay well.
Stay well, everyone, and God bless you all. And thank you for watching, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for sharing in the live chat. Andy, thanks for joining us.
Welcome.